A year ago, I set myself various goals which I wanted to achieve in 2025. And though one can't always predict how the year is gonna go, what's gonna happen, I just wanted to set myself, I guess, vague and very flexible rules of how I wanted to go about my year and just set like general signs of where I wanted my life to go and what kind of person I wanted to be. And overall, though I had not hit every single goal, which is natural for things like these, there are some goals you either reprioritize or they shift or they morph into something else. But nevertheless, the highlights of my year are I released a song in the beginning of the year called Zenith. That's the first kind of song I produced that was fully electronic. In the March of this year, I was in a theatrical production of M Butterfly by David Henry Kwong, playing as a lead in my senior year of college. The entire production was produced by DFTC and my good friend Amos. I played Renee Gallimard, and it was a challenging role in a way that the character is very disgusting, but also because the entire show is essentially the character monologuing for 2 straight hours with only like 5 scenes of him not being there, and me doing film work up to that point where you can just kind of like, look at the script and like be a little bit flexible and maybe like put a line like somewhere in the space. There, I was just like, okay, I need to keep all of that information for the duration of the show, which was about like 2.5 hours. And it was a very refreshing experience of doing theater again, which I'm starting to miss already because of the wonderful cast and crew that were there with me and I shared this experience with. And I mean, man, I'm just miss them. And it was kind of challenging, but also very sweet altogether. Then in the April of this year, I released a song called I Don't Want to Think Anymore. And this particular song broke the tradition of one-word titles. And it's also interesting because the shortest song today that I've released being only 1 minute 20 seconds. And also this song has minimal production, which I don't usually do because for some reason I tend to go for more maximalist route, not in a Daria core sense, but in terms of like layering and several like sound effects put in there. So that song only featuring like guitar, chopped drums, and a bass. Because at some point I wanted to go, you know what, fuck all of the reservations that I had and limitations that I had in terms of my creativity and what kind of lengths those songs supposed to be and the length of the titles and the overall presentation. And I think it's like the first time I went confidently full in color for my music video. No, actually, that's a little bit of a lie because I also released a music video for Breakdown, which is the most colorful music video I made yet. And then in May of the year, I graduated from college. I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of conflicting thoughts, a lot of interesting thoughts. Because my college experience was, I don't really know what to compare it to because everybody has their own unique take on college, and it would be weird to call my experience unique because of course it is unique to me as a theater major. But I feel like I was able to look at the theater arts and acting from multiple different angles, such as acting on stage, acting for camera, being behind the scenes for a film, being behind the scenes for theater, both of these mainly for sound, which makes sense because I'm also a music artist and I like making music, so sound is always an adjacent thing that I can do. But nevertheless, after I graduated, the post-grad dread did not really appear in my life like very suddenly because it was just like, yay, I graduated. I am finally free from all of the nonsense and all of the burdens and all of the busy work that comes with college. And I was just like, okay, I'm very much excited to enter the real world, I guess, however it looks like. The first thing that I started to miss was just the infrastructure and campus, like everything being so close by and walkable. And I live in Los Angeles, which is not exactly those things, although controversially, I'm gonna say that Los Angeles is pretty much doable as a person who doesn't drive and doesn't own a car, just with public transportation and just with how everything is set up. It's not excellent, but it's also not horrible, especially if I compare it to like Florida where I've lived. And so because campus is so walkable, I kind of miss having, casual conversations with people, which will tie back into me needing to reach out to people and connect with people. And what I really, really miss are dining halls, mainly because I don't like cooking, but secondly is because I tend to stick to certain foods and certain food options that sometimes I would miss, like something random appearing on a menu and me going, oh, sure, why not check it out? But anyway, this summer I had a big presentation change. I cut my hair into a different haircut, looks like so. And I was very, very happy about it because although I did like my long hair, looking back, I've been needing to have a different style of hair for a very, very long time. And I'm very happy that I took that leap of faith of going, okay, maybe long hair is not working out for me anymore and I need to change things up. And then recently I got this haircut, and despite it being the shortest haircut I've had, I feel very confident about it and I feel very good about it, and it's easier to maintain. So voila. And for the good chunk of the summer, I essentially wanted to revamp everything about my art. And within that, I also started to produce a lot of the new tracks, which I'm still excited about. And I am more willing to share them in the upcoming year because it felt like there was a certain thing within me that was holding me back, and it is TDM Delirium, which is a series of EPs that I've been doing for about 3 years now. And I felt like that the presentation and the mentality and just the whole overall headspace that I've had throughout these EPs was toxic, I guess, was very confusing and jaded. Haha, yes, because that's the title of one of the songs. But I just felt like because I was creating all of these new songs, for some reason in my head, I could not just move on. And for some reason, I needed this like breaking point from this like old mentality and this old presentation and this character that I did not know what I wanted to do with anymore, although the overall idea seemed also kind of interesting to me, but also not particularly fully developed. And also I started to produce tracks for other people, and I was started to work in sound. Oh, and one interesting thing, I discovered that I really like moodboarding. I think it's because of the like pattern recognition and just like putting things together in like one cohesive picture. And moodboarding also helped me in trying to revamp some of the elements of my art. And as I've previously stated, I'm not sure if it was particularly successful in that regard. And because I was trying to plan everything and like set particular deadlines and set particular, framework for things. But when I started to apply it in the real world and put stuff out on TikTok and other platforms, it was just like not clicking. And it was obviously frustrating because, I've planned everything and I wanted for everything to look like so, but it's just like it was not working in my favor. And I became kind of resentful because I started to put out content that was not exactly, like the creative output was not exactly there fully to the extent that I wanted to. And that's in the same time frame when I put out Tide Pool, the song and the music video. And I think that the music video is still good, but I just am not sure about the song overall because it felt as though the song was placed in like a particular roadmap and a particular plan that I was already hesitant about from the get-go because, oh my God, whatever I'm doing is like not resonating not only with myself but with other people, and that felt confusing and infuriating once again. And so although I wanted to revamp myself, I was I'm going to spend the remainder of the year on concluding and wrapping everything up and then letting go. That was my big mission for the latter part of the year. And around the same time when I was having that realization, me and my wife, my younger siblings, and my mom, we vacationed to the country of Georgia. It was mad beautiful. The people were amazing. The sights were amazing. And towards the end of our trip, I was able to go to my bucket list location that I wanted to go for like years now. And it was the Gory Memorial. It was on such a high elevation, and the air was so fresh and so picturesque, and we could see the fog and the clouds, just like such an amazing backdrop to the monument, which is like a lot of metal swords and one monument on the peak of the hill. And it was just so mesmerizing and peaceful and just overall great. And I am so happy that I was able to go there, and secondly that we had the opportunity to film a music video on that location, which I have so much admiration for, because it just looks so cool. Just look at it. It looks so freaking cool. And also, a side note, if you ever want to go to that place, go with a tour bus, because we just got really lucky with a person who was driving us there from the city, and we were able to negotiate our trip back. So if you are going there, go either with a rental car, with your friend's car, if you have friends in Georgia, or be a really good negotiator like myself. And so after Georgia, I was like, okay, I need to wrap everything up, and I finally need to finalize TDM Delirium as like a thing in my life and leave it in 2025 and move on. But at first, once again during the summer, I thought it would be a bigger album with like 10 tracks or something, or I thought it would be something like a mixtape, and I tried to do some mental gymnastics about it because I didn't really want to put out a bigger project, but I wanted to wrap it up. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put out an EP number 3 with some songs that I really like, and that's gonna be it. And those songs were Half Windsor, Tell Me What I Already Know, and Whatever. Wait, no, there's also a song called Flux, which had the most interesting story. It started out as a demo that I didn't want to release at all, and it was just a very like far-fetched demo, into being like probably the most like eclectic song production-wise that I've ever put out. Goes to show you never know. And although there were other songs that I was also teasing, but at the same time I was like, okay, I either want to work on them more, or something did not necessarily felt right. And so these songs, plus I Don't Want to Think Anymore, had become my final track list. And I put it out not towards the final days of the year. I remember that a year ago today, I would be working on like a final track for the EP, and I'll be like, oh my God, I really need to put this out ASAP before the year ends. But with this EP, everything was ready in November, and I was so happy that I was able to put it out in such a chill manner on December 12th, because 12, beautiful numbers, I like it. And I felt peaceful about releasing it because everything was pre-planned and pre-discussed, but not too set in stone. Personally, Tell Me What I Already Know and Half Windsor are my favorite songs. And in terms of lyrics and vocal performance, Half Windsor is just like so not like anything I've put out before. It was honest, it felt earnest, and I just feel really great about that song. And partially why I started to have all of these transformations creatively, because I had the privilege of being a part of a tour. I was a supporting act for Micah Giovanni alongside my fellow openers, Dear Elise. And both of these wonderful acts, by the way, were more live band, rock and roll, grunge adjacent acts, whereas I was more electropop, electronic act. There is no shame in being a different act from everybody else. What really started to kind of click is that when I was in the audience, and it was a fairly small audience, and I was watching the other acts perform with full bands and full everything, and I started thinking, oh my God, these contemporaries of mine like really rock, and they really enjoy themselves. They really enjoy doing all of this on stage. Meanwhile, although people told me that they did enjoy my act, what felt a little bit confusing to me when I was performing something like mentally, I was walking into like a mental wall where although I am performing my music, something is just like not particularly right. And because of this opportunity, I was able to really start thinking, what if I had like similar experience to them? If I really stop holding myself back in terms of like, oh, I don't need to perform on stage by myself with just a backing track, it can look different. And I think this is something that I want to really start figuring out into the new year. I feel like throughout this entire rant, I was able to touch on every aspect that I highlighted in my previous video, but just to be more concrete, reframing. What I felt like really helped were those core pivotal experiences. However, what also really helped was highlighting my core values in life and also being very honest with myself about those values, such as I do value ambition, I do value hard work, but I also am starting to value more and more honesty / kind of being authentic in my own weird, peculiar, odd way. And I feel like I'm making slight progress with that, but not like entirely. I still feel like I'm held by some like unknown, unnatural kind of like fears in my head and like particular roadblocks and limiting beliefs. And especially when it gets like really, really bad and I'm like in depressive episodes and I'm just like kind of like on my bed for the entire day. It was not particularly helpful sometimes because it also feels like whether I'm able to like self-motivate myself to do my own things or being able to join other projects or seek employment in any way. But I feel like I've gotten better in terms of reframing because of revamping. So outside of my haircut, the other noticeable developments are my septum piercing and my earrings. I started to buy really interesting and cool earrings. Also, in terms of style, I started to buy these kind of like bracelets, and I also want to see whether I can DIY some of the other jewelry and some of the other accessories. Also, I've invested in several interesting shirts. And another thing that I became interested in is that before I was like, okay, I kind of want like a combination of that aesthetic, of a combination of that aesthetic, combination of that aesthetic, and like it kind of felt wishy-washy and kind of like contradictory and unclear. Whereas as of recent, I became very interested in whimsy goth and like fairy grunge kind of aesthetics of like who I am, because I see clothes as an extension of not only myself, but of my beliefs and what I stand for. I believe that clothes and what kind of clothes you wear have an explicit meaning. Although simultaneously, I understand that not everybody has the privilege to fully express themselves or are just not interested in that. But in terms of my personal expression, I believe it is important that I'm able to communicate what kind of person I am, if not for the other people, whatever, for myself mainly. What I really can say in terms of revamping, I don't think I've invested a lot of revamping things for my room. You are seeing pretty much as much as I had done, which is maybe get a few other plushies with my wife. We sometimes use this wall for self-tapes, so I don't really want to like cover it with stuff, especially when it's kind of like useful a lot of the times. But maybe my personal workspace, which is like over there, which is my table, I feel like maybe I could do something with it, especially since I am getting closer and closer to the aesthetics that I like and to the things that I like, and I'm becoming not like categorical, but I feel like mentally I am more like, okay, these are the things that I like, these are the things that I don't like, these are the things that I'm kind of like indifferent about. But if I'm indifferent about them, it's probably a no, then a yes. Sometimes I may have a pull for a yes, but most of the times it's probably like a no. Recharge, oh my god. The biggest pitfall, I guess. Although I was able to vacation to another country, which I am very, very privileged to say that I was able to do, I don't feel like I was able to reframe me recharging in a healthy manner, because I am also, again, falling victim to I am so back, it's so over, I'm so back, it's so over, the burnout and depressive episode phases. And also the phases where it's like, oh, actually, the life is not really that bad, into, oh my god, I cannot do anything right now. Remix. Previously, I've talked about soccer, and soccer is still one of my interests, and I don't think I was able to go into it in more depth as I had previously wanted to, although I was able to go to a soccer game, PSG versus Botafogo in Los Angeles, which was great to see the UCL winning team against a team from Brazil that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise see. I was also able to get into the other things that I was interested in, and we're getting into the kind of like rekindle territory. I am getting more into fashion, having more eclectic choices of wardrobe. Also, I'm getting back into anime and realizing what kind of types of anime I like, not the mindless harem, borderline hentai, slice of life, whatever, but more in terms of like, okay, I do like interesting stories and I like that they're being told in this particular manner, such as an anime that I really liked that was interesting but also kind of fucked up, but also kind of very controversial, but also interesting because of those two things. Hellsing was kind of fucked up, but also Alucard. Something that I did not do is make one of these video vlogs, whatever thingies. I really did not kind of do them. I made a lot of short form videos, mainly because of the quicker return on investment in terms of like the amount of effort it takes for a short form video. Plus me also thinking, okay, I really want to be a music artist first and not vlogger and not like other things, and I would rather focus my energy on being full-on music artist. But that also on a day-to-day basis is not really translating in short form, so that's a little bit also confusing. And although I know that I'm artist first, I feel like maybe I should really stop thinking like, okay, I really want to become this one particular thing, but are we open to things working out differently or looking a little bit differently from how we initially anticipated? And maybe it is me talking to a camera, and I feel like at this point in my life, for some reason, I am more open to exploring these kind of things and just not particularly caring like, oh, I need to be like this particular thing, and if I don't present myself as like this one particular thing, then everything is gonna fall apart and things are not gonna work out the way I wanted them. Then I don't know, maybe that's not the right philosophy to approach this. You never know how it's going to work out, and that's kind of the biggest roadblock for me, where I want things to work out in a particular way, but once again, you never really know. And not to be a little bit like redundant and a little bit anticlimactic in terms of like, oh, what kind of goals I want to set into the new year, I think just living life and doing what I am doing, because it feels as though sometimes like, okay, I do want to improve in a lot of areas of my life and I want to become more of my own person, more of myself, but you don't really know sometimes when something is going to come your way unless you take a particular leap of faith, or whether it's going to just gradually come naturally into your life. I don't want to set a particular theme for 2026, but if I were to title it, it would be 2026, the year of, all right, dude, let's just fucking do it. And I guess time will tell how the year is going to turn out and how I'm going to go about it. Although I understand it's not particularly concrete and maybe it's approaching year on a little bit like vague note, but I feel like that the bigger things that I've outlined in 2025 are kind of just, they're slowly progressing and morphing, and I think the things that I've outlined a year ago are still working out for me and guiding me. So I guess until next time.